All right, here we go. Brian Galassi here. So I'm going to start off we're doing a wooden toy, and so I want to start it with some basic primitive shapes. I'm going to do a submarine, and so I'm not going to turn my page because I want to keep it within this range. So I'm going to try to do this. I usually flip it around, but I'm starting with this central axis, and I'm going to draw basically a cylinder that kind of fits along there. This is going to be the main body of my submarine. And so I'm trying to keep my ellipses, both major and minor axis, square. Just double check that. Looks good. But that's not the actual, that's just the major and minor axis. My actual box is somewhere about, and when I'm doing this, I'm trying to find a box that's going to tangent this ellipse in pretty close to at least the 4 quadrants. So this looks pretty close. And now I'm going to project that along. And let's see if we can get another box down here that's tangent. And you know, I found a kind of interesting thing, and I'll draw it off to the side here. Let's see, where's down here? Sometimes when you're drawing and you don't have your vanishing points in the drawing, and I usually set up kind of like an angle that I start with and kind of feel out where that feels comfortable. And one of the things in the book that they were showing, it's actually, I'm going backwards, but if I draw a straight line across, this is going to be the corner of my box. If I draw a straight line across here and basically build a rectangle visually over here, and now whatever perspective, like if I come down like at a steep angle, so my vanishing points are over here, then that means from here to this other corner will define the other side. And then those should actually end up going to the same horizon line just by kind of looking at this horizontal. So when you're first starting your box, if you just draw just really lightly 2 horizontal lines wherever, this is too much perspective. I don't like things that are too radical because it makes the object a little hard to understand. So I like to kind of, let's say, we'll pick this line, something that converges but that's not quite so radical. So we'll call it this. And now I just go across, straight across, and so this point right here, that needs to go through there too. And if you think about it, it's really like a 2-point perspective with a 1-point perspective box in there. And I've just drawn the front face, so I've rotated it. It's kind of like drawing a diagonal. Anyway, that gives me this line right here, which is always the hardest one to figure out, that last line. Where does that go to so that they theoretically end up on the same horizon line? And this works for, let's see, can I draw it down here? Even if it's radical, you know, a corner like this, and let's pick this as my perspective point. And this is more of just a checking thing. You don't get too wrapped up in this. This would go way over to here to fit into there. I go up, and now I'm crossing over my other drawing, but that gives me my other. So now I can build my box. I ignore that, and now I can build my box by kind of visually going off to those vanishing points. I can trim it down any size I want. And you have to kind of visually project these out, even because they're going way off your page. So that's what I'm doing here, is I'm visually converging these lines, but I don't actually have a vanishing point, and that just takes some skill getting used to it. And like, see how this is actually, this space here is getting bigger. That's wrong, and it's mostly that my axis is off. So I need to straighten that out a little bit. Woo. And like I said, this is not my best angle for drawing straight lines, but we're going to deal with it. All right, so what I want to do, this is my submarine base, right? And then maybe I want just a perfect round front end to this. So I might use this ellipse as part of the construction of a sphere and go off in this direction now. And you know, everything you do, you can actually break it down and do it super accurate. But the real trick is kind of learning to do it quickly and just adjust as you go. So I'm kind of trying to get my ellipse in there. This ellipse, there's the minor axis, so I just got to double check that. That's going to help define. I got one more ellipse in here that would be this one wrapping around to this point. And now I got to tangent all those ellipses, ellipses, I'm going to say that, to get this. This should actually be a full circle, right? I should be able to go all the way around, but really I just want it up to this point. And that's the transition of this cylindrical shape to this spherical half dome. Now what I want to do is I want to, I think they're, what are the towers called in a submarine? Coning tower or something rather. I want to put that projecting up, and it's going to be a smaller diameter. So in this kind of spirit of wooden toy, I'm going to imagine I'm going to take another dowel. I'm going to drill a hole and intersect that through this shape. But I need to, it's going to make some kind of interesting intersection. So first what I'll probably do is I'll come down here, here's my center where I want to place this, and find the axis where the two axes meet. It's right there. And now I'm going to go off to my vanishing point. I'm going to build a box that's going to contain this. Or I could just, if this is the top one, I could just project this down and go, all right, it's going to be a little bit bigger, a bigger degree of ellipse, but the same width. And so that is, and now I'm going to go back and double check by making a box around this. Inside the submarine, I'm going all the way to the center. And now there's another thing I like to do is like, see right here, this little space right in here, these should all be the same volume. And I can see that that one is not the same volume. This one's too much and this one's too little. So that gives me a clue also that this needs to come up a little bit higher and this one needs to cut in a little bit more. And so my ellipse is probably a little bit off. So that looks a little bit more like the same volume in there. Where'd my sharpener go? And pause while I sharpen here. I'm just going to be all dirty on the floor. All right, so now the trick is to project all of this up onto the submarine surface. And now this is going to, I'm adjusting on the fly. I'm making this a little bit wider. So this top ellipse will also be a little bit wider. Got to fit it in there. And the other thing is, you know, this is all freehand. So as much as you're drawing all these construction lines, you can't trust them to 100%. Like right there, this isn't quite meeting up. So they're guidelines. They're not set in stone. So if a point is not quite lining up and something, you can adjust everything. So now I need to find this section here. So this is, here's my center point. I'm going to go back to this ellipse. This is my guide. This is the end of the cylindrical part of the submarine. And I'm going to go back into here, and here's my center point. And I want to build an ellipse that's, and this is going to take me a second here, that's a rough duplicate of that, but it's going to be a little bit more wider, because as I'm going back in perspective, these should get more and more circular, and as I go this direction, they should get more squished. So this is slightly wider than this, and I'm going to go back. I projected this out to, let's find a plane in here. Oops, nope, that's not quite right. So I'm building the box around this one too. And the other thing you have to think about is that there's no one way to do any construction. I could build this in a bunch of different ways. Notice I'm drawing my ellipses first and then the boxes around them. That's more comfortable for me, but you can build the boxes and then fit the ellipses inside those as well. So again, I'm going to use my kind of little volume idea and just kind of check the volume in that corner to this corner. And I see that this you should be able to draw your ellipse in one big circle, but I'm breaking it down into quadrants. All right, so that is a kind of a center line. I just split this cylinder right at this intersection. And now, like, I can get my first points by going into this inner ellipse and projecting straight up until it meets this. This is the surface of the submarine. So if I go up on both sides, and I can check this also, these 2 points should be parallel in perspective. So these lines should all feel like they're going off, and that looks all good. So these are the first 2 points. Now I'm going to do, let's see, I can check this one by going all the way forward and then up vertical until I hit the top quadrant. And that is actually right here. It's not, this is the visual edge over here, but the top center line of the submarine is right here. And again, those should all meet up right there where this vertical line comes straight through. That should go straight through there, come across to the back. And that is the, if I split the submarine in half, that's where that line would be. So I've got that. I could come down forward to where this circle, and I'm going to change to red just so you can see this because it's getting a little crowded. This line should go straight up until I meet this line. Now, if you think about it, as I drill through this, I'm going to get this curve that it's got to start there and it's going to end up here. So I need a few more lines on this surface. So let's pick a, and it's going to end up looking like a potato chip, just from doing this in real life knowledge. So this backside comes up right there. So I've got now, I've got 4 points, 2, 3, 4. And notice they're kind of unevenly spaced. So this is going to help build this whole curve. So let's pick some quadrants here. So let's, it doesn't really matter where, but I'm going to divide this up into 2 more spaces. So I got a point right here. I'm going to go up, and now on the now what am I going to do with that point? Let me go over here first. That quadrant. Let's draw just one more square up here. I think this is going to help me a little bit. I had this all planned out, and now all of a sudden I'm second guessing myself. So I've just moved this ellipse up so it's a flat ellipse on top of the submarine. And this is gonna, whoops, that can't be any wider than that. Oh, yeah, see, here's something, this ellipse is out here, and then this one is in here, so this needs to go a little bit further. Because that intersection point's gotta be on the inside, not on the tangent line. So here's my upper ellipse. And I can actually look at this and go, all right, so this is going to come along and it's going to droop down. It's still an ellipse, but it's got to droop down to this point. And then it's got to curve back up to this point. And then it's going to wrap back down this other surface to this point. And then this is the weird part. It's going to curve up and around. And so it's going to make this, like I said, it's kind of like a potato chip. So that's the shape, the intersection of that. And I was going to break it down into a couple more sections and project those up to the surface, but I'm actually
if you had to have a cross section.
Yeah, but because this one actually is not, it's smaller than this. So I think I have to find this point, bring it out to the surface, then bring it up over, and then find that intersection, which I didn't quite build in, but does that, let's see if we can do that. So if this inner circle right here is smaller than the diameter of the big tube. And if I find this edge here, this is the difference. Here's the outer ellipse. So that's how much smaller it is. And so at any point along this line, let's find this point right here, I have to go out to my outer tube and then wrap up and then go straight up. Just project this straight up, and where those intersect, and look, it's still on that line. So each one of these sections, if I'm confused, like way back here, I'd have to do the same thing over on the other side. Where's my big ellipse? Is right there's the outer point. So I'm going to draw a line there. So let's find a point just inside here. I'd go out to the outer edge, and then follow that up and over the surface by actually kind of mimicking this arc. And then up, and those should intersect right there. So if you're in doubt, break it up into more surfaces, or not more surfaces, more little points. Break this thing up into as many points as you need. And like this one is a big sweeping curve. That one's kind of easy. It may have a little bit more apex curve to it. But this is the hard part over on this side where it does these kind of tricky quick bends. And so that's the part I might break down into more surfaces. Now this is too tall, so I'll just chop it down. And like I said, I kind of screwed this up. It's a little bit fatter. And this can't be any wider than the ellipses, so I gotta adjust that a little bit right there. And let's make this, we're just bring this down a little bit, about right there. Get rid of all this part because we don't need it. And a lot of times when you've done these drawings is you'll come in with a overlay and clean up all the line work. But like I said, in this class, I want to see all the line work. So it's really just about building up all your visual edges, your important lines, your important cross sections. It's like this side, actually, we don't even see it. It's all on the other side of the submarine, or this tower. So it's not as important, but it may come into effect later when I'm trying to build some other component off of this. All right, so I got some of the base features. The other thing about submarines is they kind of taper in the back, and so I could do this in a cone. So I could just simply come down to a smaller diameter. So I'm just building a smaller ellipse on that same axis, and then just drawing some tangent lines. And again, be careful, the tangent line actually is over here. This is the center line, and that is just gonna run just parallel down here, but it's not, you gotta go tangent to this, a bigger ellipse. So there's a simple cone reduction, but I wanna actually do something a little bit different there, because I'm gonna theorize that I'm gonna turn this on the lathe. So what I want to do is I'm going to back up the shaft a little bit, draw another ellipse in there, and from this point I'm going to change the profile. I'm going to both taper it, but I want to go down to more kind of fish tail vertical ellipse. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do this in two operations. I'm going to kind of think about it the same way. Is I'm going to start here and I'm going to come down to maybe a little slightly larger ellipse. And so from here down, from here tangent down. But since I'm on the lathe, I can blend this like a bottle. It doesn't have to be a sharp transition there. But I do want to keep in mind the shading. So like if I if I'm doing my shading direction kind of off in this direction, that means that my core is going to run along here. But when I get to this point, I'm going to start arcing it up and follow that conical section. So that's going to be my core later when I shade all this. But so I've done this, but I want to do another operation. I want to kind of trim off some of the sides of this. So what I might do here is find the this axis, which is about like that. And so I found a point over here, and this is getting a little small. Can we see in here? Yeah. What I'm going to do is I'm going to trim off a little flat section on each side, and I can figure out the opposite side just by building a little box here. And that'll give me my mirror image on this side. And so from this section right here, I'm going to just kind of trim out a little flat area. And it'll be something like this. And I could build in some more ellipses. So let's say at this, that's not even close.
So in this case, what shape are you using to trim off the submarine?
Kind of a vertical line. So I've laid this, and I'm going to take it on the bandsaw and just cut a little kind of flat area out. So I'm trying to figure out what that flat area would look like. So here's my center line on this side. It's about right there because I'm following this axis. I run down, and that meets up with this one projected one, which is good. So that will go up to here, and then it should project back. And so in this case, my guesstimate was off. So here's my center line. Here's the transition point, and now it's going back to a center line over there. So that means that this depends on how far back I want to go. I'm going to go to this point. This actually needs to, and this is just from knowledge, but I remember I was saying that if you cut a a cylinder, can I draw over here? Let's see. If I take a cylinder and I cut a piece off at an angle, from the front view, it'll make a parabolic curve. And again, just doing it a couple times in the wood shop, and you'll kind of see what I'm talking about. So this is all flat surface here. Now I'm going to go straight across to the other side of my submarine. And there's that equal and opposite point, and I could double check that by following this down to, here's my transition. Yeah, and then this should start tapering back to there. And so I'm going across, and that last oval's a little bit wonky, but it's about there. And so this other side, which we can't see again, but I'm going to draw it in here, would be something like that. So I've trimmed off this little section, and the reason I did that is because I want to add, I'm just guessing what submarines look like, but I'm going to add a little fish tail to the end of this. So now I'm going to go back off to my vanishing point. I'm going to draw some sort of profile. Let's just draw a little curve here. And then the easy way to check this is, let's box this off, everything in boxes. So I've got the top half of the square now. I want to mirror it down here. So I can find my diagonals, find my center line, draw a straight line down. There's my new center point. Now I'm going to do a diagonal through that center point, come down. Now go off to my vanishing point. Okay, so there's my box. Now if I look at this, where this diagonal goes up through here, I'm going to draw an equal and opposite diagonal. That crosses this, this point right here. So if I just draw a straight line down to this diagonal, that's that same point reflected. So I need to go from this point through that point back to this point. I could do the same thing over here. I'll draw another diagonal over here, and now I've got a point right here, and I'll go straight down to that diagonal. And now I've got these points, and this is one of those cases where, look, I'm going here, I'm going to connect these dots. wow, that doesn't look anything like it, right? So something must be a little bit off. This might be a little bit inward. That's probably pretty good. I think it's more of this one. So I got to find a graceful curve that mostly connects all those. Yeah, and just a little bit of variation can cause some problems. All right, so this is just going to be a simple extrusion. So I'm just kind of pretty much projecting the same curve. I just scooted it over. This is going to my vanishing point. And I'm going to do the same thing down here. I'm just going to my vanishing point, and I'm just kind of following that curve with my eye and trying to keep it graceful and wrap around so that it looks exactly like this one, just offset. And I'm a little bit short there, but... And so now there's actually, this connection also is going to be a little interesting. It's probably going to have just an ever so slight curve where these two surfaces meet, because I'm going to probably have to cut the end of this arch completely off so I can glue these two together, because I can't glue an arch to a flat surface. So I need flat surface to flat surface. So I trim the apex of this arch down to a flat, go straight across, double check it, all looks good. Yeah, like I said, you'll find that when you build this, that if I did this, there would be a little tiny gap right there if I didn't arch this back down into that space a little bit. And now I gotta come back here and just say, all right, where are my tangent lines? Where's my outside visual line is here. So there's a difference between the profile, or that's where the object ends and space around it begins, and that's this line, right? And there's a tricky thing that happens is when this is a profile line, and now it should still continue, but now it's on the inside of the object. So typically what I do there is I do them thicker, and then I kind of fade them out into the inner space so that they don't just abruptly end. But they actually could abruptly end right, like here's another one. So if I do a thick outline, I come down to here, but then this line actually continues. So that's where I kind of taper it in just to give it a little visual. Same over here. That's a visual edge up to this point. So I'll give it there. And then this is also like this one edge here, like I was showing you guys, where I like to do a little bit of a radius, which means just adding a parallel line, just slightly offset. And that indicates a little bit of a radius there. And I'm just faking this side, and it would actually change the profile just slightly down here, but I think visually at this point you would never notice. So I'm almost done with my submarine. Maybe I need a few portholes. And maybe the top of this looks a little boring, just lopped off. So you know, I might do something where I'll put a little, not a full dome, but let's
say, what if the dome is bent?
Yeah, exactly.
Bent
so
to the left.
Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a shallow dome on the top of this for right now. So I've kind of quickly build out some axes. And then I'm going to take this center point, which is now the center of this ellipse, and just move it up. Let's see how far. I'll go up just slightly above the this outer visual line. And so now I've got to build an arch. And this is not going to blend in with this. This is actually going to be a sharp transition. I'll build a little arch that fits in this side and then this way. And again, I'm eyeballing this right now. You could actually map it out, but I know that this backside's got to be a more radical curve than the front side. And we'll call that our cross sections. This backside also needs to curve a little bit more. And now I need to tangent to all of these little construction lines. So I built all that just so I could get this dome. And this is going to have a hard transition, so I'm going to do a little double line there too, right on this edge. So it's kind of like a soft dome and then a transition into a hard surface. So let's quickly put some shadow work down here. So here's the base again. And on cylindrical objects, what I like to do is cast the shadow of the box first and then map the ellipse back into there. So in this case, we're going to look, let's go back to red for a minute. We're going to look at this thing here. Here's my direction this way. I'm going to go straight off that side. So here's my angle and my light direction. There's one point. Once I've done one point here, I can actually look at this and go, okay, that edge is going to stay there. This edge has got to go back in perspective. This one I know goes off horizontal, which is right there. So I really only need to cast that one point to get me my first. And now I've got a new box and I need to fit an ellipse into that box. It's much more squished. And again, I only need this front part right there. And now I need to find the dome, this whole surface. And in this case, I'm going to do a tangent line to the front of this. And I know that on the surface, which is right here, on the ground, if I projected straight down, here's the ellipse for that dome. If I projected that down to the ground, that would be an ellipse about right there. And now I just need to move that ellipse in just horizontally straight over until it becomes tangent to that line. So this is my cheat. And again, I could do all this inward stuff, but all I need is this piece, and this tangents into this piece, and at that point, the tangent, I'm going to go straight back, and I could probably even fake this secondary ellipse, because it's going to be over right here is where it starts transitioning, and it is touching this. So I'm just free. To me, the shadows are not as important. People aren't looking at the shadows for information as much as they're looking at the main object, and this is just supporting it. So that's why I'm kind of just guesstimating these. And now let's go back. I'm not sure, I didn't check the center line here. If I project this across, I can see, and that looks like it pretty much actually just landed, like that little fin would land right on the ground, which is good, because that makes this a lot easier to build the shadow instead of hovering. Angle about like that. So that's that corner point. And let's see, let's build this point here. Okay, so again, this is the box. If that were a whole box shape, it would be like this. And so now I can actually just visually project this shape into that box. And that's one half. That's just if this were just one surface, that would be the shadow of that. But there's a whole nother one on the back side. So if I go back here, again, I'm just visually mimicking, this should be parallel, that same shape. Because I need this thickness. And then there's a point here, which is about here. Again, I'm just kind of going to guesstimate this to make this go a little faster. And I think I need a little thickness on there too. I'll double check that. Okay, so there's my shadow under my submarine, and probably I would need to build a little flat space in the bottom just so it doesn't roll over, or put some little legs or something rather to keep it from just flopping over. This may help it from rolling over, but might not be enough. Yeah, there is a extra piece of that shadow I didn't draw on there. I mean, if you build out the whole shadow, it really looks like a projection of the object, like flattened out in space. So in this case, this underside of the submarine, down in here, this kind of area would be the darkest. Like right in there. And right as this lifts off, more light can get in there, so there'd be a little bit of the light would travel in there and kind of lighten that area up more or so. So this would be the darkest area. And then same down here, like it'd be darkest right under there. And this might kind of fade up a little bit. And I like to keep my shadow edges soft so you don't like overwork the edges of them. What was I gonna do here? Oh, I'm gonna add one last little thing, is some little kind of fins in the front maybe. Oh, portholes. Yeah, we've talked about portholes. All right, so now the portholes actually don't have to be like right along the center line. This is the center of the side view. So maybe I'll bring those up. And in this case, I'm gonna kind of project some of these kind of rib lines. And I want it, my porthole is going to end on the center line, and I'm going to start over here on this one and go up to this point. And so if I look at these 2 points, I could just draw an oval between those 2 points. But that doesn't, that's a flat oval. It actually has a curve to it. So this is kind of tricky, where it's a little bit like this potato chip thing. This oval's got to flatten out a little bit on this side and be a little bit more on this side. And again, if I mapped all this out into a little box and did kind of like, do you see I'm actually doing curved diagonals to kind of mimic the curve of the shape? Then I could start to actually look at all those diagonal spaces and see if I'm landing on those 8 points that. So here, let's just do it again here. So there's, this will just have 2 portholes. So there's my kind of curved section. There's more or less a center line. We just checked that one, so there should be kind of a little slight curve to those X's. And then map out my porthole. And if I offset those, I could actually build in a little thickness. And notice that if I'm offsetting these are not on this, they look like they're leaning a little too far, but they're above the center line. So the offset now, if I drew a cross section of this, they're actually in this space. So if I want to offset them, they're actually offsetting in an angle down towards, actually to the center point. So if I went from the center of the ellipse, so I should offset this a little bit off. Set. So I should be going towards this center line. A little bit more down there. And then the last thing over in the front here, or actually, you know, this little porthole up here. I'm going to kind of look at this, look at what I just did. This is going to have that kind of little bit of a potato chippy look, but then straight up above it is a full regular ellipse with minor, major axis straight because it's on the top surface. Whoa. Again, you could map this out and go, okay, that's going to go down to here. Follow the curve around, that's going to go to here, there's a curve. And if you went through all that trouble, you'll find another potato chip shaped intersection there. And when you're in the shop, just take a dowel and drill a hole through it and you'll see this shape and it'll make all the sense in the world to you. And I was going to build a screen door on here to keep the bugs out, but I think I'll stop. Oh, I know, I was going to do some little fins. So let's quickly just do the last little pieces. I'm found the center line. I'm going to draw a little fin sticking out of the front. So first is a box. Let's extend past the, and now on the opposite side, here's the center line on the opposite side. There. And then how big is this box? I can actually do this by doing, this is getting kind of messy in here, but let's go way over here, way over here. Find the center line of this interior box. Sorry, that is a bad straight line. Okay, so there's the center right there. And now I draw this is a little too long to get accurate, but if I draw a center line from the edge of this box out through the center line here, it should project out and show me how long that little secondary fin is on the other side. So I had to do all this to check, and it actually, just a little tip would show if it were a square, but it's gonna be a, it's not gonna be a square. So I want this kind of shape, but I want to have a little bit of form to it. So in this case, I'm going to kind of draw a profile like an airplane wing up here, kind of follow that out. I'm just giving it a little bit more profile. And maybe this drops down here. And again, this one wouldn't show up because it's just being hidden by the other side. So, and I need a little shadow from that. So let's find this point is over here, project out. There's this point, direction, angle. So that's the tip right there. Let's find this. I'm going down to the box. Did I do that right? Here's the edge of this box. Over, angle. Did I do this right? Yeah, I think so. Okay, so that would curve out from this point out to here and then straight back to my perspective. A little bit of shading on that. And there you have it, submarine. Right, now I stop.